right. Well, start the recording and it's an informal meeting.
Yeah.
Don't want to make it seem like it's not, but just so that we're on the record, that was important to some folks. So anywho, I am not going to run the meeting.
No, I think this is
Don't
Gary.
blame
This is Gary's meeting. I mean, I think we're interested to, you sent us a
Well,
very
Rob
thoughtful.
asked me to come. I would say it's
Right.
Rob's meeting, but
Yeah,
I'm happy to. I guess I had sent a letter that I think, in large part is self-explanatory, but I wanted to at least speak with somebody on the board to see if I, misunderstood anything of the information, because I had that in speaking with Alex, I was able to get some information that I needed to get a better idea of it, because after your last presentation, I couldn't really grasp exactly where the committee was heading, and I've been watching the committee meetings, but not in the specifics, because I was really having a hard time following the specifics, to be honest, as a resident. And I noticed, like, at the meeting, you had, like, livable square footage. Alex mentioned you did that because you thought it'd be easier for the people. For me, it was more difficult.
Right.
Because that becomes a very subjective way of doing it, right? And so when you try to analyze it, you need to keep figures like FAR, lot coverage in those numbers, and that wasn't out there in the presentation. It was out there, livable space, and this is how it compares, in our opinion, to other towns based on their livable space. And so it's just a little confusing. So when I wrote the letter, I was able to get that information and kind of deduce from that what amounts of heatable square footage you would get, and try to put that into a realm. And then I just pose these questions here. Love to go through some of them and see what the thoughts are of the committee, and see if I'm right in my thinking, if it's as restrictive as I think, or if it's not as restrictive as we think, or whatever. So starting with FAR, right? FAR, you have the options reduction A, B, and C, correct? 0.439, that's your least restrictive?
Yep.
Okay.
But that's not across the board. That change, it
It's-
varies by
that's
lot size.
Well, that would be your, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not, so it's not a fixed number.
Meaning,
Meaning it's a sliding scale. It varies depending on what the lot size is, will generate.
So the formula includes your lot. So you have to put the lot in, and then there's a calculation on that for
It's not the
getting
straight
to an
percentage,
FAR.
but it's a percentage.
Right now, you have 0.36 and you have 0.38 between different lot sizes.
Mhm.
This is a sliding scale, so depending on the
so
lot
the
size.
larger the lot, there'd be a different number.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
It'd be
so
a smaller number, the larger the lot, the percentage.
as it grows from 10,000 to 11,000, or
It
even
starts at 7 and goes up to 15.
in changes in what increments, like
It
thousands.
changes all the time.
It's.
Do you have a graph that
infinite.
shows that?
Yeah, I was going to say I can pull up something, or do one of you guys want
I
to?
would
Oh,
say
hi,
if you
Rob.
pull up the presentation, even you'll.
The one from the community meeting? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, let me do that. Talk amongst yourselves.
Well, that one
Hi, Rob.
doesn't have the actual
Okay.
calculations.
It doesn't have the calculations.
But you have-
actually.
So maybe an earlier-
Yeah, if you use the one before that, maybe there was
I'll
a-
use
And
the,
then
yeah,
use
let me pull this
the
up.
one before we took out the calculations.
Because that was the only way to compare to other towns, because every town has a different set of
And it
factors about how they define it.
I think an
That was the
important thing
common
was,
element, and
it wasn't
also
just to
related
compare it with
real
other towns, it was also to compare it with what's being
real-
built
real estate
in Needham
value.
currently as well, because we think that's as important or more important.
If somebody finishes their attic and basement.
Which the vast majority of people are doing right now.
But the concept of going to the FAR that's adjusted to the lot is to try and be more accurate and just fine tune the calculation to the actual lot size.
I think-
So it's a much more equitable.
I
So
think an FAR is a great way to restrict, that's not.
Yeah.
But while she's looking that up, I mean, just so on a basic 10,000 square foot lot, which is what Needham's SRP is predominant, right? It's that number, right? It's 0.439.
Well, yeah, I think that's the right number for the option A, and then I
Okay.
think it goes to
So-
4.5. Yeah.
You guys changed that number, and then you also changed the definition, so now you want to include the garage and the attic over 5 feet, which I'd like to talk to you about as well. But when you do the math background on this, as a builder, and again, I was a bigger builder when I was younger, right now I do more commercial stuff, but I used to build a ton of this, and you look at heatable, livable space, right? What you have on 2 floors, first and second, and predominantly, in my opinion anyway, people want to have a certain amount of amenities on those 2 floors. You finish a basement, you finish an attic, 9 out of 10 times it's a playroom, it could be an office. If you have to put bedrooms up there, it's not an ideal situation. They're usually extra bedrooms or a guest bedroom. Like if you have kids, you usually want them all on your same floor. Having an office on the first floor is important. And I think you guys discussed this, as I heard in some of your meetings, that you did a lot of research and calculations that you can still get that under your model. When I take the deductions off of this number, your 0.439 and 10,000 square feet, a typical garage that's not massive in any means is 24 by 24 or 576 square feet. That's a very standard garage. And you can build them smaller. You can go 22 by 20 and you have the doors bumping into each other and it's not ideal. Or you could be too big for a 2-car, which would be 28 by 26 or something like that. But it is standard, very standard 24, it's 576 square feet. And so if you deduce that off your number, it brings you down to 3,814 square feet. But now you're also deducing your attic out of that. And so any attic space over a 5-foot knee wall, if I'm understanding, whether you finish the space or not, that's how you're defining it, would now count. And typically, you know, this is an attic, a typical colonial of 3,600 square feet or a 50 by 50 box or 60 by 40 box. That amount of square footage is around 800 to 1,000 square feet. Unless you stop playing games with the roof or you stop bringing that pitch down and you flatten that roof. So now out of your 3,800 square feet, you're taking off at least 800 more. So at your least restrictive option, you're reducing what can be built now on a 10,000 square foot lot, which is 3,800 on 2 floors, to 3,000, a 22% reduction in what can be done on 2 floors. And you're saying, well, but you can finish the attic and the basement, which you always could if somebody wants to do that. In my experience, that's just too tight for what people want on a house that I don't think is too big for a 10,000 square foot lot. I think that house is too big for an 8,000 square foot lot or 75, which Needham has many. I understand the restrictions there. I also feel that the restrictions that we placed where we might have lost a gap there is that we kept that 0.38 number and we let it ride. So as lots get bigger to 11,000 and 12,000 and 13, that 38 carried too big, right? Because now you're getting bigger than 3,800 on 2 floors. You're getting to 42 and 44. So in my opinion, that probably should have been curbed down, right, to keep it. But to get under that 3,600, I just think it's tight. What happens is you take the amenities, and I have a floor plan I'd like to share with you guys after, but you know, a simple office on the first floor, for example, 4 bedrooms, ensuite, Jack and Jill bathrooms, and a laundry room on the 2 floors. You can do it in 3,600, and it's tight and it's nice and it works. The room sizes are decent. They're 12 by 14s, 12 by 13s, whatever. To get that to 3,000, you're losing something that, however you do it. I mean, you're either taking out your office and that's going to have to be shoved somewhere else, or you're taking those room sizes and going 10 by 11, 10 by 12. You're making it smaller to get everything in there. And people in Needham, you know, certainly myself, but a lot of people that I know that have moved in here and they don't want that layout. They don't want to be restricted on a basic 10,000 square foot lot to that. Further, in my opinion, I think that when you look at a 3,000 square foot house and a 36 square foot 100 house, if it's designed correctly, I don't even think you see the difference. I mean, you're talking about a 10 by 10 slice off on 2 floors. It can be done well so that architecturally speaking, the 3,600 square foot house can actually look smaller in mass than the 3,000. And that's what we tried to do at the last committee, was to incentivize architectural details that would create jogs in houses, pulling in second floors to create some designs. So if I could, I'd just like to pass this out to kind of explain something that I was talking about.
Is there a link to this?
The,
I don't have Zoom link for this.
oh,
Presented
yeah.
yesterday, isn't it?
Are you gonna share your screen? Oh, for your. It's the same link as always. You have it
The large house.
for the working group.
You sent it out yesterday as well. didn't you?
Yes,
Last
I
night.
did.
So this is a basic 3-page layout. It's not a whole set of plans. It's just a quick picture. This is a house that I built in Wellesley about, I guess, almost 3 years ago now, 2 years ago. We went to the large house committee because Wellesley, similar to what Needham's proposing now, changed their TLAC number from this 3,600 when they made their first reduction. It was well accepted by the town and builders, and then decided to count the garage and dropped what they could build to the 3,000 number that I'm talking about. So to build this on a 12,000 square foot lot, I believe it was approximately, had to go to large house review, a process that they allowed. It cost 25 or 30,000 to go in with extra plans and details in 6 months of time to be able to build this. But they, yes, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you bet,
I was
you bet.
trying not to
No,
mess up your train of thought.
No, that's fine. Wellesley, contrary to what I'm hearing from Needham, even in this proposal, they dropped it to 3,000, which was not well accepted, and actually just decapitated the 10,000 square foot build market there. It still has. That's what they wanted to do with it. But at least they offered a relief mechanism, which I haven't heard Needham's even proposed. Right? You don't want people going to ZBA and all this stuff. So at least in Wellesley, you could go to a large house and say, hey, you know what, if I design the right house and it doesn't look as big as you guys think, you know, can we build it? And this one was passed with flying colors. Their lot coverage was 20, this was 25%, which was another thing I wanted to talk to Oscar about because I heard him on the meeting the other night. By having a 25% lot coverage, you allow for the 62 by 35 or 62 by 40 footprint on the first floor to get an office and things in your layout. But it also allows you to be able to pull your second floor in dramatically, right? Because you can go out big and come in wide like this house. The first floor is 64 or 63 by your 40 and 35 in places in the back. But you can pull it in and you reduce the mass of a house by stepping in because you're allowed the flexibility in the lot coverage, which isn't massive at 25% of a lot. Every town that ever built it, most of them, Natick has it, Newton. So it provides for architectural incentives to create detail on a property. That I feel that by bringing the lot coverage down at a 21% or an 18% is going to shrink you in excess of setbacks. And then what builders are going to do, or design professionals are going to do, is stack the build on top of it because they don't have any more room. They're going to max out your lot coverage, and then they're not going to pull in because they can't, because you constrain them too much on the bottom. So now that you're going to get boxes, you're going to get less jogs, you're going to get less second floor roof showing, and things like that. And I just wanted to show this plan because you look at the layout of it. It's not a massive home. I guess this one ended up being like 3,700 square feet. Looking at the first floor. You have an office on the first floor, family room, kitchen, dining room, living room. Not massive room sizes. We're talking 14 by 14, 14 by 15. You have a small office of 13 by 13 on the first floor. On the second floor, we pull it all in. We pulled it in. You can see that the second floor is much smaller than the first floor. And you got the 4 bedrooms with the Jack and Jill bathroom. You know, well designed as far as room sizes. They're not too small, but they are small. They're 13 by 12 and 14 by 10. They're not massive at this 3,600 and change number. If you take this number and you drop this down, you couldn't build this house if you needed to. This could build now under, right, this house could go up on a 10,000 square foot lot. After even reduction A, this is up.
So what's your livable on this? And what's your first floor livable, second floor livable?
I don't have the
basement?
breakdown, but the total livable was 3,710 square feet.
Including the half story, the bonus room on the third floor.
No, 2 floors. 2 floors. The total size of the house with a finished basement that had 1,400 and an attic that had just under 500 was 5,400.
So this is 5,400.
It's not
Livable.
5,400, what you call it livable. I call it, it's 37 on 2 floors, or 57 if with a basement and
When we say
conditioned
livable,
space.
it's
Conditioned
all
space,
the livable spaces. So
Conditioned
that's,
space.
yes,
Yeah.
57,
54
54.
with low roof, and up in the attic only had about 484, I think it was.
So you're saying we can't build this with even reduction in
No, not even close. So you'd have to, the lot coverage one wouldn't allow it. So that would be out right there, which is a very standard size. When you talk about houses, you know, again, just going through the layout, Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, because you're a retired architect, but you have your living room and dining room, 14 feet. You have a foyer that comes in 12 feet, right? You're at 26 feet. You have your office that's another 12 feet, it's 38 feet, and a 24-foot garage. It gets you to 62 feet. You're north of 60 feet across to get a basic design in that. And then depth-wise, you're 35 to 40 with jogs in the back. That creates a 24 to 2,600 footprint to
What's
do
the
this.
lot frontage on this?
On this house, yeah, it was 80, and then it widened. It was a pie-shaped lot.
80 on this. So, and your setbacks were 20, right?
I said it was a pie-shaped lot. It was 80 frontage, and it was a pie-shaped lot with
Yeah.
20-foot side setbacks.
Right.
The
Okay.
depth, we
So you
put
slid it back so you could be this wide.
So how far back were you?
to be 62 feet. We had to slide it back.
So how far back from the street?
With this one, I'd have to look at the plot plan. So north of 30, right? So 30, Wellesley has the same rule that you guys also want to apply with your 500-foot rule, your case 400.
With the
We
front
pushed it
setback?
back another 5 or 7 feet to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to fit it in. We didn't have to. They could have said, no, keep it closer and build it smaller. But on a typical 100 by 100 lot in Needham, right, with your setbacks at 14 and a half, you should be roughly 30, you'd have a 70-foot approximate that you could build side to side. This would fit and still have 8 feet to spare on a typical 10,000 square foot lot. And still provide for a 40 or 50 foot backyard. So not massive in my opinion. But again, constrained and something that will be eliminated. And when you get down to that 2,100 number, you're not gonna get a traditional 62 by 35. You're gonna have to shrink something. So either you're gonna shrink the depth, which is gonna force you not to be able to jog and having architectural integrity, or you're gonna have to shrink it this way and you're gonna shrink the garage too much or take out the office. At 3,000 square feet, you're gonna take the office out, right? You're gonna lose that. You're gonna be moving that to a basement level. You're gonna have to make arrangements to do it. And that's what I mean about overly restrictive, in my opinion. I think that for a 10,000 square foot lot, which Wellesley is predominantly made of, to build a 3,600 square foot house on 2 floors, if I can talk about it in that terms, is reasonable. And I think a lot of people think it's reasonable. And if it's explained to them, this isn't what is offending people in large majority, in my opinion, in the town. I think what's offending people is when you take a house like this, it should be 3,600 square feet, and you get to a 12 or 13,000 square foot lot in Needham, and now you're taking this and stretching it out and making the room sizes bigger and making it 4,200 square feet on 2 floors. Or on a smaller lot, you're overbuilding. That's where I think, in my opinion, the restrictions should really be on the mass and the bulk. But to decapitize the architectural incentives we left in place by this significant amount, like I said, even reduction A is over 22% reduction.
So if I could just jump in there on that, so on option A, basically on a 10,000 square foot lot, livable, which does not include the garage, you can build 5,000 square feet, not including the garage. So that's not that far away from what you were talking about there. No, the livable is over, absolutely, that we have to.
And the option B is 45.
45, 57,
Yeah.
option C is 4,200. But that's, so it's, and again, that's, we
So
had
you're
taken,
900
that's,
feet off.
that, what was that allowing for the garage, 500?
Yeah,
For
I
a
mean,
for a two-car
we've seen, obviously garages are, when you count them, they're flexible, so they become your math to decide what you want.
When you
to
say
build. So you might
5,000, I'm just not sure where you got.
4988 is where we kind of got that figure, is what that's kind of working out at.
So the FAR then of 4,390 isn't controlling, because if you deduct those things that I just said off of it, I appreciate the number, but if you did take off,
So the livable is including what you can do in the basement.
so that would control. So I can go back and say, well, we can get 5,000 square feet. I can make the first floor bigger because I'm allowed 5,000 square feet. Because if you take 4,390 and subtract 576 for your garage and subtract a
Yeah,
modest
we're using
800.
500, there's not very little difference.
Yeah, we're
there, that's
using,
fine.
474, 500, whatever. Yeah, these
Which
are
is
the
fine.
garages that are getting built 23 by 22 that are perfectly workable. So I think when you're counting the garage in your math,
Mhm.
instead of getting it for free, then you have to make decisions about where you want to spend your GLA.
Yeah.
But, so I think that's valid. I think the other challenge is your ground floors with 20-foot setbacks, volume is completely different when you have 20-foot versus 14 feet. So side to side, the relationship of houses that are being built, the bulk that's being built is dramatically more when you're 12 feet closer essentially with houses, right? So the Wellesley setbacks are to their advantage, bigger, right? So you're working around greater setbacks, greater distances for houses. So I think that's one difference that Needham has to deal with, right? We have tighter
But
side to
the
side.
reason for that, right, was because Needham has predominantly more 80-foot lots than hundreds.
Or
like
small.
Needham. Or small.
Under, or
Right,
non-conforming.
So that's kind of the price you have to pay for the way that the lots are designed, and I understand that, but does that mean that if you have a 10,000 square foot lot and the setbacks are too small because a lot of lots are 80, that you shouldn't be able to build a 3,600 square foot house on 2 floors because
You
it's too
can,
close?
you can use your FAR however you want to use it. You can build a 2-story house. You have the room with the setbacks and with the coverage
Mhm.
to be able to do a 3,600 square foot house on a 10,000 with the regulations. It's just a matter of how you're calculating your attic.
Yeah, forgive me for being redundant with it. Can you just explain that to me again? Because when I look at the FAR, I don't see it. If you just backtrack what you're deducing, because you're saying that, but you're deducing an attic over 5 feet, which is something I strongly would oppose.
You like the taller roof and you like the
No,
ability to
it's
build.
not so matter. If I like taller roofs, I wouldn't design this, right? I don't like taller roofs. I like to bring things down. That height is 32 and
But
a
I
half
mean,
feet.
Let me say pitch, so steeper. pitch
No, I
versus
just don't
shallow
like to
pitch.
count it in the FAR because I like to have my architect and work with an architect and have design over what I want to do with my roof without saying, well, this is gonna count whether I finish it or not. And I understand that a lot of people finish attics, but we don't always get a call for that. So I don't finish the attic, that space counts anyway. And what is it incentivize? I mean, if you count the attic in the FAR, you're incentivizing to finish it, which may or may not be wanted, or to scalp the roof, right? If I wanted to build a 3,800 square foot house in 2 floors, I would just say, well, forget about needing, I'll just flat roof it like some of these things popping up. I get 800 more square feet, I can do that on the, right? I just don't see why that number would be included in that. And I think that Wellesley did it, wasn't accepted well there. I think Newton's tried it, maybe they still have it, I think. It just, to me, doesn't incentivize an architect to be able to work, to be able to design something in the roof, to have that number forced into, unless the FAR is lax. But this FAR to me seems like it's tight, and that's.
Well, you can adjust the FAR depending on what you're counting. So the discussion has been, since a lot of houses are being built with attics, and I think that the previous committee, you guys some people were of the mind that there weren't gonna be any attics built, so there was a lot of attics.
Well,
Now,
our
we've
base
seen
point
it
last
getting
time was, every house has a roof, every house has a basement, and who cares what's in it? So that was the approach we took.
As long as it wasn't massy, so we had an issue with dormers, like, if you can't see, basement space and attic space on a traditional roof, is it massy? I mean, no, if you start plucking 3 dormers on the top of your colonial, that starts to add some girth to it, right? Or if you have a walkout basement in the back, that's why we added that, where you shouldn't have a dormer if that's exposed, because you're adding height and you're adding that mass. But a traditional in New England, what we hope to incentivize, what arts and crafts style, Greek revival, colonial, like whatever it is, that typical roof. And if you have a problem with the height, that's fine, drop the height, drop your height requirement, what you want to do anyway, right? So drop it. But why do you have to then force FAR into that number if somebody doesn't want to finish an attic, that it counts on what they can build on the first 2 floors? So I've just never really.
Because we're trying to get it bulk, not used.
It doesn't change the bulk, that's what I'm saying. How does it doesn't affect bulk, right? I mean, a typical roof, if it's not dormered out, it's not gonna add mass. What's gonna add mass is to restrict the size of what you can build, which this does, in my opinion. If you had to build a 3,000 square foot house, you're gonna bring everything in. But I would tell you, in my opinion, you're gonna lose architectural significance and details, that house is gonna look more massy than that house. And that was the case in this. There was other new houses on the street. The neighbors swarmed to this because it was a bigger house by 700 or 800 square feet than all of its neighbors. And in some cases, it was twice the size of some of the non-tenant houses. But it fit in better than the other ones. It's how you design it. Forcing it in, and the people that are upset about new houses, I understand it, but they're gonna be upset about a 2,800 square foot house on 2 floors. When a ranch comes down and a colonial goes up, it's bigger, period. And so the question is, how do you make it as attractive as you possibly can? And allowing some flexibility with lot coverage and control with setbacks, allowing to be able to pull roofs, and I think it's just an imperative. It's an essential part of being able to allow builders to do what they do with architects that know what they're doing, to design something that's favorable to the community's lives. And I just don't want to see that. I hate to see that just scalped. And that's what we talked about at nauseum at the last meeting, and tried to leave ability for builders to do something like this. Understanding not all builders will and do. I heard a comment at the last meeting, builders just build to the max. Well, that's unfortunate. I don't know that I fully accept that premise, but that's true in large degree. But do you punish all the other builders for something what some other builders might do? You want to allow for architectural freedom and try to design. And in my opinion, living in Neenah for 25 years, my whole street's been like that, right? I moved in, they were all ranches, right? I'm the last one. Now there's $3.5 million homes on the street. They're all, I guess, bigger, but they're all on 10, 12,000 square foot lots. They look good. I think the builders that built there built some nice homes. I mean, yes, they're bigger, but based on the last changes we made, that my whole street went down at that time. In the last 7 years, let's say we lost 8 homes. They're beautiful. They have jogs. They have designs. They pulled them in. I just know that if this gets changed out, it's going to drop. And I know that from not just my opinion in doing this as long as I've done it. Wellesley's done this. I made my career in Wellesley. That's where I started in 1997, and I built 46 homes a year in Wellesley for 10 years. Then they chopped it to 36, and we tried to talk to them, and that worked. And then they chopped it again to this kind of range. It just stopped it. Everyone, you had a study there, and they said, well, it's not going to affect it. This will absolutely affect it. Because personally, as a builder, I wouldn't even consider building under this pretense, unless I'm wrong in the way I'm interpreting it. If it's true that you can get the 3,600 and I'm somehow misconstruing that, which I'd still like to talk to you about, builders just walk away from it. Or they take it if they have a custom home to build on it. Most homeowners that want to invest the money just won't invest in being constrained that much on their 2 floors. So what it will do is, if that's what you're trying to do, is encourage people to buy end homes and stuff like that. Well, that's mission accomplished. I mean, if you want to stop building, maybe just put a moratorium on it. But this will curb it. Wellesley's new construction, check with their volume on permits. I mean, it just went, right? No one touches 10,000 square foot lots. I will only work in Wellesley, if it's by large house review or if it's a 15 or 20, because at least it's still fair. Everybody walks away from the 10th. The problem with that in Needham is Needham doesn't have different zones like that, right? It jumps to RSA. So you're taking a broad brush and going right across the entire whole single-family district of SRB with this, and I know you're gonna lose people that wouldn't normally want to come in. Needham has been on fire for 7 years after we made these changes, and was on fire before that because the zoning is fair.
Well, I would argue that the zoning is very, very liberal.
Okay,
And so you're getting houses that are being built that are dramatically 30-40% larger than all the other homes in their surrounding towns. So
Okay.
it's off the charts. It's an outlier.
I would agree with you.
So,
I would agree with you.
And we do not legislate for style as much as I would like to as an architect. I think your house is quite nice. I would argue that that house is absolutely appropriate in almost every neighborhood, but that's not what we're
What are you
getting.
saying? We can't build that?
We're not getting,
don't
we're not
He's saying
we're
we
not
can't
getting
build
that.
production.
And I think the challenge is we have to create some sort of a control mechanism that's gonna allow a builder, and maybe that means that you're gonna be able to go in and get a special permit or go to ZBA and prove that you can do something with more FAR that's actually not gonna be.
Not that I want to go that
But
route.
we're
Can you
not-
do that? You're not
so
even
we
offering,
don't-
you're not even
so-
offering that problem.
Well, Oscar,
Maybe
yeah, we're
we
not
can.
offering,
So maybe we
we're
can.
not offering variances for anything under 15,000.
Maybe what we have to do though is be careful that whatever we're setting as a boundary or a guideline is going to control for someone who's gonna come in and do the maximum bulk and not have a thoughtful design that takes into consideration how you bring down massing and you're doing knee walls and so on, right?
I was
So-
present at all those Wellesley
Right.
meetings. When they did this from 3,000
Yeah.
to 36 to 3, and again, and I was an uproar because there was a negotiation done with builders and residents, and I wasn't a resident, so I only limited thing, but there was people hired to do this. They went from 36 to 30, to 3. They knew what it was gonna do. They put the large house review in place because they knew. They, again, didn't want to completely handicap it, and they've been very liberal with allowing, I mean, 90% of what goes to large house review gets approved. They instantly offered the door because they knew how restrictive it was. And I'm just being honest with that, and that, this is
So we're much less restricted than those.
not under option A, you're not.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Again, am I misinterpreting? Because I know you've done this.
Well, you've got,
How do you get a
you know, you
36?
have, the way they've studied it is this number.
Yeah, 36.
So, but no, there's 5,400 square feet.
Okay,
And so when you look at that all encompassing thing, they've finally eliminated the basement from the calculation, but it's still part of the overall look. So they're just trying to encompass, so you talk about, Paul was saying there's 4,900 square
Yes.
feet available. You have to carve it up the
but
way
it's
you
not
want.
4,900 square foot available. Your FAR is 0.439. This is
They
this
have
is so
a-
confusing to the public. Which one is it? Are you guys gonna rewrite the zoning and you're gonna make it 4984, or is it 0.439 is an FAR restriction? Which one?
So the FAR will count first, second, third, and garage. That's the revised definition. That's what it includes. It does not include,
But it's a
Basement.
0.439.
I don't know what that, I have to check out and see exactly what.
0.439
They want that example of it.
on that
They haven't
example.
set the final numbers. Those were all real houses.
I'm watching the meeting the other night. Everybody wants to send this to a vote in a hurry like it was yesterday. We don't have the final, there's no final. I thought these were the final.
These are the current proposals for options A, B, and C.
Okay, so it is the final. So it's 0.439. You don't get a 3,600 square foot house on 2 floors with this number. You just don't get it.
So again, that.
The question is whether you think that the 3,600 is an absolute. I mean, there are houses that are getting built right now.
Yeah.
That are less than 3,600, that have 4 bedrooms, that have Jack and Jills, that have bathrooms and en suites. And they've got a generous ground floors, and they're being built for 40, they're getting 4,500, 4,300 square feet on an 11,000 square foot lot. And these are going for 2.3, 2.4, 2.5. These are new houses. And so I guess not everybody solves this the same way. So there are builders out there who are transacting and building, buying for 1.26, and then they're selling for 40, they're selling for 4, they're selling for 2.5. So, that's $1.2 million that they're using to build and get some profit. So that's happening in Needham in 2025. So I guess all I'm saying is you've got an opinion, you've got a product. right? So
I do,
you're
but-
one builder. So I
I'm not
think
even really-
you're-
I'm
but
a
you're saying
semi-retired
3,600
Yeah.
is what you think is magic,
Right.
but that may not be the magic for everybody else, right? So
Right.
we're trying to figure out where it makes sense to reduce the volumes of houses because we see what's going on in the town.
And with all.
And we
the-
have a lot of small lots compared to Wellesley, or we have a lot more smaller lots.
Well, small lot,
So they're not
and again, I agree with you,
right?
on small, what's a small lot? Is that fair to say under 10? Or
Yeah.
say it's 10 a small
Most of
lot?
the stuff is 7, 8,
Yeah.
you know,
Restrict away,
75,
restrict away.
right? So,
Absolutely. I
well,
thought that should have been the last time. Way too big. 3,000 might be too big for a 7,000 square foot lot. I completely agree with you, but we're talking about a 10,000 square foot lot, a very standard postage style lot. And again, not to be contrary to what your opinion, I mean, I walk through tons of open houses in this town. I go see a lot of permits that are pulled. I don't know of many houses at all that are 3,000 square foot on an 11,000 square foot lot. I'd be inclined to ask you, I mean, I don't.
4,300.
I'm talking about on 2 floors, right? I'm
These
talking
are on
about,
2 floors. Mostly, these are 2 floors. They might not have an attic. They have a different roof style or something. So
I thought you were saying that builders were building smaller on the 11,000 square foot. lot.
they're building and selling a 4,500 square foot or a 4,300 square foot livable, which means they've got 1,000 down and then they've got 35 up. Or 40
Yeah,
up,
exactly.
right?
Well,
So,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, 35, 36 up and,
Right.
and 1,000 down, but make sure that you can get that 36 up. Make sure that you can do that. on
but
2
they're
floors,
underbuilding. They're underbuilding. They're doing that on an 11,000 square foot lot. They're
which they
building-
could do bigger, right? And that's prudent. And I think that's great. And personally from last committee, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I personally would love to see.
But that
and that's-
same house also would fit because it's underbuilt on the 11,000. So that same house could be built with a 4,500. We're
Not on this,
the numbers.
not under these numbers, it can't.
So
Not on a
there-
10,000 square foot lot.
I did a review on 116 houses that were sold. Can't see it very well here. Actually, it might be just
Yeah.
as easy to share this. I'm not on the Zoom. I sent the Zoom yesterday, right?
At 7 PM, I think.
Well, if you remember last time, Gary, we specifically enhanced the numbers for undersized lots. And that's been part of the problem.
Yeah, I wasn't, I
Because
wasn't,
you
I
get
did
this
agree.
house on an 8,000 square foot lot or 7,500.
And I didn't
so-
love that last
so
time,
there's-
and I agree with that. I really do. I mean, I just
So
think
that,
that that's.
this adjustment
Yeah.
will resolve that issue.
Yeah, I think that's more than appropriate. I really do. And I thought it was more than appropriate last time. And I think it should be restricted. And I think that when I see a big house that looks big to me, it's on an 7,500 square foot lot. That's a problem. I also think that if you run with the FARs as they stand currently at 3.8 and let that run to on a 12,000 square foot lot, it's too big for a 12,000 square foot lot. So I agree that it can be shaving down here. I guess what I'm pleading with the committee is to consider this 3,600 number on 2 floors to allow builders some.
That's an 11,000 square foot lot and
Okay.
that's a 4,300 square foot house.
Okay.
It's 2 floors. It's got a
I
small
don't
attic.
see there's a floor plan. I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you guys are throwing around a lot of facts and figures. I'm not a builder, architect, or even in the field, so.
Yeah.
My young brain says that what you're asking for is restrict away, what I hear is you were saying, is the smaller lots, we have a very good case, but you're saying the majority of the lots that are around 10, 11,000 square foot, you think we should have some sort of variability there or some flexibility in those
I
lots?
do, because I think that, it's my opinion, the committee would make its own opinion, but I
Yeah.
think that you could restrict, you know, if the committee would accept the possibility of allowing 3,600 heatable space on 2 floors, and again, I'm just breaking it down to that definition, just to try to keep it to that, because that's what's so important, at least to me, and I think many builders and homeowners, I sit in rooms with architects and homeowners all the time, it's a crucial 2 floors. If that could stay on a 10,000 square foot lot, and keep it that way. So if it's an 11,000 square foot lot, it stays at 36, and if it's a 12, it stays at 36. So to do that, yes, you'd have to step down. You'd have to do the math, however you define FAR, to allow for the 3,600 on a 10, and then let that run with an 11 by reducing it. And, you know, some lots from 10,001 square feet to 11 is this. Lots from 1101 to 12,000. And Newton, in fact, does exactly that. That's how they do it. They step so that they're controlling that FAR as they go, where I think in the last committee, it was a mistake, in my opinion, was to put a 0.38 number out there and be broad. They paint that broad brush because as you get to a 14,000 square foot lot, you know, it's big, but there were some people on the committee that felt, well, if you have a 14,000 square foot lot, build a 4,500 square foot house on 2 floors, and it's fine because it's still big enough to handle that, which is arguably true, but not in the essence of a neighborhood setting. So I think that that's really a great place to tighten it up. And I think that lots under 10, I think that they should be reduced to 2,600, 2,800, 3,000 square feet. So I'm very conservative on that. But this will take away these 10,000 square foot lots are between 10 and 12 are the majority of what Needham has is buildable stock, and it will just crush it unless it's done to allow that.
Well, that's in your values. So what I heard at one of the community meetings from several people is that you can do all these reductions.
Yeah.
It's not gonna change the sale price. You're just gonna get less for your money. That's one of the things I heard, but I also, in my brain says that if we're eliminating the possibilities of what you can do on the majority of these lots, it's gonna lower your price. And I think that it's gonna lower the price for the people that want to sell their homes and eventually move out. And I think that's one of the goals of this committee is to do that. So what is your opinion? Or
I think it's concerning. I could tell you exactly, in my opinion, by mirroring what happened in Wellesley, right? So, when they went from the 36. to
Well, what
include-
they did was they included garage
Yeah.
calculation.
Which
So
is
only
a
choice they
576.
made.
And they went from 3,600 TLAG to including the garage, which is approximately 576, dropping you down to that range. Permits just tanked. So did end users step up and buy those houses? Yes. At a decreased price? Yes. The ones that really got affected the most were the houses that were true and genuine tear downs, right? So like I haven't
Do you have
given.
documentation that they bought them at a decreased price? Because I doubt that.
So I'm a licensed real estate broker. I'd be happy to provide you. I mean, I have to go back historically and look at it, but yes, they bought, the market for 10,000 square foot lots went down. And again, not that this is my concern, he just asked me a question, so financially, it's not really important, I have a neighbor that lives across the street from me, right? They live diagonally across. They're the last one on the street that hasn't been torn down. They're elderly, aging in place, have care come in. Their house is a complete tear down. An end user, it's not gonna be a great target for them. It's got the fieldstone foundation, right? It's falling apart. This is definitely not. It's gonna affect the value because what the builder can build on, it's gonna be significantly less, and it's gonna decrease the demand for a buyer to buy that product. So I think in that regard, more so than the other part. What you'll see more largely is a decrease in permits. I think with construction on those lots, you may see some additions. That happened in Wellesley, people buying, fixing up, doing kitchens and baths over and keeping that stock there. But as far as a tear down to build what people want to get a return on investment for, I think will absolutely plummeted in Wellesley. They knew it was going to plummet. They created a large house review committee specifically for that purpose, so that they'd be able to allow some kind of relief for the restriction. And contrary to Needham, everybody flocked to the 15 and 20 and 30,000 square foot districts of Wellesley. That's where I went to build, and they still had options to build the houses they want. They just shut it off in one area of their town. Needham just shuts off 80% because it's
Whose
SRP.
interest are we trying to serve here? The person selling the house or everybody else who remains in the?
I'm trying to serve the interest of being able to
I'm
build.
asking about the interest of the other people who live in the neighborhood that get screwed up architecturally and in terms of quality of life when a giant house goes into a neighborhood and then every other house starts to go over the years and the neighborhood completely disappears.
So I understand.
The town is defined by neighborhoods.
I get it. I understand, but I'd like to just again say this. I want to say it clearly. I think that unless you're going to put a moratorium on building, a new house from a ranch to a new home is going to be bigger. And the average person looking at a house that's restrained to 3,000 feet or 3,600, I'm not in here advocating for a 4,500 or 5,000 square foot house on 2 floors, but the difference in that 600 square feet is crucial on the inside. And I would argue de minimis on the outside. If designed properly with architectural incentives, you would know the difference. That 3,700 square foot house looks smaller than the 4,000, 5,000 square foot houses. The 3,000 square foot houses on that street that you could build by right with additions and whatnot. It's how it's done. But
Yeah,
these
and you
change-
did that, but every developer we get doesn't do that.
Right, so provide architectural incentives so that they can do that. Keep the lot coverage flexible on the bottom so that they can pull things in on the top. Mark through a thing in the last one where you had to have a jog after so many feet back to encourage architectural significance so that you'd have jogs in the houses. So encourage that so that when you have a 3,600 square foot house on 2 floors, it doesn't look massive.
Well, this
Mo, what I'm saying is somebody built, you pass this goes through. Somebody built a 3,000 square foot house on 2 floors. It's going to be big to that neighbor. It's going to still be large to that neighbor. that they didn't like the 36, the 3,000 is gonna just be another big home.
We surveyed neighborhoods and how many houses did we survey?
So 20 something, you guys looked at?
Yeah.
They did what we did, or we made that list of examples, new houses, toured them, what do you like about it, what don't you like about it?
Yeah.
It was a very similar process and very similar opinions and results. So,
Mixed, right?
but I mean, I look at, you could take 10% out of this house without blaming. And a 21 by 19 master bedroom, that's not comfortable,
That was under roof.
That's generous.
That's under roof. That's under roof. So 21 by 19, four holes, roof is, it's an A frame.
and they're all ensuite bathrooms, which is a very common thing now.
Mhm.
But people,
The Jack,
that's a
the
recent,
Jack and Jill, I think, in there too.
no, they're all ensuite. And that's very typical too, but that's a recent development, that's been in the last, we didn't see that in anything we studied.
Right.
We saw maybe 3 baths on the second floor,
Take
not
a
all.
bathroom out, it's not gonna make up 600 square feet, you know what I mean? But
Well, it's not, yeah.
This is also this is wealthy, it's way more affluent, wants some.
Well, there's lots of houses in Needham. My niece's house has, her master bedroom's that big. It sits over the entire garage.
But again, this house is 3,700 and change. So if you, again, to get it to 36, you would have to shrink it. It's 37 and change. So it's already large. I get that. I didn't bring it in to show you a 36. But if you took 10 feet out of that, there's your 3,600. And then how big is the rest of it? These rooms are big, 14 by 14, 14 by 15. These are massive. A family room with 18 by 20 is massive. I mean, that's what people want, 18 by 18, right? Family room.
Well,
The office.
they've also heard from people who say, I wanted a new house. And they had to buy this house when they would rather have had a 16 by 18 family room and a
So buy a lot higher,
20 by 30.
buy a lot higher, build what you want.
Yeah, people,
You don't, the thing about a restriction is you can always build smaller, right? You can always go less. No one's forcing you to go bigger. If I could with the committee, I know we've talked about the FAR a lot, and I think I've heard what you said. I guess I'm still confused about that last number. but I'd like to
Can I
move on.
explain that? Where
Please, yeah.
we're getting our numbers first. So I think we were very conscious throughout this that we're not trying to restrict new builds.
Yeah.
Is the impact of this going to have some impact on new builds? More than likely. But again, that's probably by doing this, we're likely to have some impact. We were certainly not trying to impact people's ability to build a house with a traditional roof. I brought it up a bunch of times at different meetings. I was conscious of that we're not putting restrictions in place that are going to end up in more flat roof houses and reducing the bulk. I hear what you're saying on the 5 feet in the attic. That's maybe something that we need to kind of look at, but
And do you agree that, I mean, you see these houses popping up with no roofs, don't you think that somebody would easily just, right? I mean,
potentially, but they're not as marketable. A lot of people don't want those houses. They sell, but they are absolutely not as marketed
or
traditional.
you're bringing in hip roofs or you're scalping roofs, and why not just make the FAR not included? Just make the FAR different to just not include an attic.
Yeah,
And then
well,
put
the
your height.
intent was
include height.
to-
If you're worried about height, drop the height.
Yeah, I think they're proposing, what, a 2 or 3 foot.
Go ahead. I mean, this house here is only 32 and a half feet.
Yeah,
That's enough.
It's achievable with the height. That's why.
So then
we
why
were-
does FAR have to get mangled then? I just, because it.
Yeah, it's included in it, but in our opinion, we had adjusted the figure to allow for it. It's not included in it and there's no allowance in the FAR for it. We were of the intent, we could have left the garage out of it as well and just have a different FAR number. We were trying to.
Right, there's a whole
have the-
bunch of different ways to skin a cat.
Absolutely.
I can understand that.
We were trying to have the FAR in a way that it allows for the typical Needham home to be built an appropriate size, and it's up to people how they distribute it over, generally, they're distributing it over 3 floors. I would be very disappointed if what we're doing reduces that they're more typically distributing it over 2 floors rather than 3. That's not the intent of what we're trying to do. I just want to show you where we got the numbers from. So we're taking here, let's go with the 10,000 square foot house.
Lot.
10,000 square foot lot. So again, you're correct. We're saying the proposed option A allows for 4,394. But we're saying we'll leave the basement for a second. What we said was we're taking the lot coverage here minus the garage. That would allow you a footprint of 1,369, not including the garage. The garage we have accounted for 500.
So it's only 2,100 square feet, 2,100 lot coverage, right?
This one,
lot coverage is 18.
This is 18.7.
Lot coverage is 18%.
But it's a
Yeah, it's
maximum
really
of, it is allowable of 21. Yes, on the 10,000.
So it's not, it's 21.
It's 20.
This particular unit is 21, is 18. He's showing you what it is.
Okay.
This was just one of many ways you could calculate a house. You know, how much
Because you
get
can
first
switch it out
floor,
over various
right?
different
'Cause
floors.
you can use your FAR where you want. You can go
But if the
lower
lot
on
coverage-
the
so-
attic.
The bottom line on this is you're saying that the FAR over 3 floors is 4,393.
That's what you're
On,
saying,
on,
yeah.
on the 10,000 square foot, based on that option A percentage wise. And then what we have done to get the total livable on that is we have removed the 500 from the garage. And if you've got a first floor footprint of 1369,
Can I just stop you? So where'd
You can.
where'd you get 500 for the garage? What kind of garage is that, 20 by 22 or something?
yeah, which is,
22
so
by
again,
22.
we analyzed 30 something houses that were built here, and the average garage was between 450 and 500 square feet on one's actual lot. We surveyed the plans on them, and that's where they were coming out on
Yeah.
a typical lot here in Needham. Again, it varies, even if it's 550, it varies the whole thing by 50 feet.
I don't
50
think
square
it's an
feet.
architectural goal to build a 22 by 20 garage. I mean,
On the tighter lots, that's what people are building.
well,
They're not.
I said it's not the architectural goal. I understand there's reasons to do it.
Yes.
I mean, again, these are the garages you get in, and depending on what you drive, I
And
know
the-
people don't drive the bigger vehicles.
The intent with including the garage in it now is people can go 450 square foot, or they can go 600 square foot. They choose what size garage they want, but they can play around with the FAR. We're
So
not
you're
telling them.
encouraging smaller garage.
It's up to people how they decide to use it.
It's
Okay.
in the math for the designer.
But see, I guess that's what I'm saying, the architectural incentives, you're incentivizing people to build smaller garages. So a spec builder will do that like that, and then when people buy the house and their garage is too tight, it is what it is, because they're gonna try to get back to this 3,600 number, I'm telling you they're gonna do it. I looked at your plan, that doesn't have an office, right, so it doesn't have, I guess it's a conundrum about what people want in a new construction home, and that, I understand opinions can vary, and that's the reason why I debate and argue with you, but I understand that, but that's not 3,600, and that floor plan, in my opinion, isn't what's not it.
Yeah,
Well,
so
it's being built and it's being sold. So I
Probably,
mean, the
probably on
point
small
is,
lot, yeah. And again, I
that's
think
an
I think it's
11,000
great if somebody
that's an
buys, if somebody
11,000
buys
square
an
foot lot.
11,000 square foot lot and
Yeah.
wants to build a smaller home, I think that's fantastic. But I also think it's not
but these are
fair
spec,
to
these
cap
are
somebody's
spec.
ability to build a reasonable home. And that, to me, wouldn't be
But
reasonable.
I'm
to
saying
me.
these are underbuilt based on what if we were to implement an A or a
It's
B,
great.
this is still underbuilt.
And I would
so
say
they're
that's
not
the
building
large-
even to
not
what
the
would
large
be a
majority-
restricted
Not the
zone.
large majority. I know that can't be. I know it isn't, because I walked through enough of them.
There are
But
lots
I
of,
think it's
there are
great.
lots of builders though, and
You
there's many
have-
different approaches.
where did this one come up? 1 second, I've opened a different.
Can I build this on a 10,000 square foot lot? Can I build this house?
No,
But you said this is on a 12,000, isn't it?
that's the 12,000.
Well,
Yeah, you
why-
can build that on the 12,000 square foot.
Yeah.
You can build 5,400
Well,
square
this is
feet.
a 12,000
finished.
square foot lot.
You might not have this
Yeah,
exact.
but the difference is Needham doesn't have an abundance of 12,000.
Needham has the vast majority of lots, the average lot, so I
Is
guess.
10,000, right? That would be the
Well,
majority.
the sweet spot is 10, but there's a
You wouldn't
whole,
have been able to build
75% of the lots are between 10 and 12.
So
Gary,
you would have been able to.
45% of lots are between 10 and 1220, 250.
Yeah.
A lot are 10s, but then there are a lot of
Point
that
of the
level
study
of
so far
1250.
says-
So there's
One.
the sweet spot for most of what's getting torn down is 11,000.
So mathematically, you'd have to have at least a 12,000 square foot lot to do it. And in Wellesley, you could have built that before they took the garage out. Right, so that was right in the ballpark of what was allowable under the
So-
first rendition. Then they hacked out the garage. And that had to go to large house review for just that reason. Solely to get back to 600 feet.
Here is-
$30,000 in 7 months.
I did an analysis, I took this straight off MLS, I took it straight off Zillow. I found 116 houses in the last, from 22 to 25, that were torn down, new houses that were built. So on the assumption that they were tear downs or new builds or whatever. And there's the synopsis. Now, again, this is livable, so this is what's been advertised on Zillow as finished space. So I didn't check plans or anything like that, but there was 6 houses under 7,500 square foot. There's your average livable for those houses. All the information to back that up is all up here, directly off, including lot sizes, all of that. Between 7,500 and 10,000, there was 14 houses. There's the average livable, up to 10,000. That's including basements, including finished basement, including finished garage. So here's
Yeah.
your, between 10,000 and 12,500 is your sweet spot on lots.
And what's the average livable square footage?
5,700, yeah.
And that's 54, and that's 3,700 square feet. So that could even be reduced a little bit more. But to get it to 5,000, you're taking out that.
No, well, that's 5,000 at 10,000, but
At 10,000, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking
Yeah,
about 10,000
but
square
again,
foot lots,
the-
but
the-
we can
the-
dance all over the
but
lots.
the intent of the committee, not the intent of the committee, that is not a correct thing to say, but we are looking at reductions.
I understand, but then I'm just
Yeah,
arguing
no,
with
I
the
hear
significance
your-
of
I
the
hear your
reductions. I
point,
mean,
yes.
like I said,
But it's not
in
as
actuality, it's
significant.
a 22%
It's not
reduction
as
on it. If we're
significant.
talking apples to apples, 10,000 square foot lot to 10,000. To keep it apples to
How
apples,
a
it's a
house
22% reduction in what you can do on it. That's a pretty significant swipe. in my opinion.
I'm not sure that we agree on that number. That's kind of where we're saying.
Right now, you can
10,000.
build a 3,800 square foot house on 2 floors, 0.38 on a 10,000 square foot lot. You do your deduction on your FAR number, right? And it's gonna be 3,014 square feet. That's 800 square feet difference.
But if you don't, again, we're hoping people do go with an attic. If you don't go with a third floor, you could build that over 2 floors.
When you say don't go with the third floor, and I scalp my roof to below 5 feet, or I just elect not to finish it.
That's something that we absolutely, and that's.
These are key things. I mean,
Yeah.
this is crucial, because that's what Wells did. It doesn't matter if you finish it. It doesn't matter if you finish it, as long as it exists and your roof is up, then it counts.
I'm
And
not-
guess what you
I'm
do, right?
I don't disagree with some of that.
All right, so that's one of my issues, and if I could, I don't wanna, I don't know how much time everybody has, but there was a couple of other issues I wanted to cover on that. So that, to me, obviously, we talked about the primary concern and a pleading with, from myself as a resident builder. I don't even build that much, so just so you know, this isn't an interest, I probably built 4 or 5 homes in Needham in my 25 years here. Built predominantly in Wellesley, Newton, did a lot of building when I was younger, I got into commercial real estate, now I do property management and stuff that I've built and maintained, and I build a house a year, or maybe one every other year. So I build the houses I want to build, and I'm selective about it, and I put a lot into the design. I'm here as an advocate for the clients that we've worked with. I know what people like, and I know that things can be designed. So that's the precipice of my thing. This isn't an incentive, like, keep this away so I can make tons of money
Yeah,
building.
no, just listen,
It's not my
I am.
We
a
hear
builder,
you.
so.
But what's your other concern?
So. Talked about the attic, which is a big part of that. We talked about the lot coverage, I'm not gonna stick on it, but again, typical, I just wanna just touch on it quickly and go to something else. The lot coverage of the 21%. If you take a basic footprint of 60 by 40, you're at 2,400. You're north of that, that lot coverage will be restricting. And I know you said at the other Zoom meeting the other night that it's not, nobody believes that, and Joe Matthews said that. It is restricted. Because a typical house is, again, to get that is around that 60 to 65 feet by your 35. Any amount of math to get to 21 is gonna have to shrink it. And you talked about putting a point back. I think the lot coverage is fine. And the reason I think it's fine is because it gives people, architects, the ability to do this. And I just think the committee should spend more time incentivizing how to get to that, rather than to just take a blunt instrument and cut it, as Mr. Crocker said the other night. I think that's important, to get bulk down. Get bulk down, but do it in a way that it creates architectural design, put some thought into it, rather than just a blunt instrument.
Yeah,
Walk out.
it's very hard to, I hear exactly, it's very hard to create that. You can allow it,
Do it
absolutely.
with setbacks. I mean,
Yeah, it's what
right, do
yeah.
it with setbacks, that's what they were designed for.
We-
If
we've
you
been
want more
conscious
room
of-
on the side, add. If you want more room in the back, then make the rear setback 30, 35, if that's what you want to constrict. But don't take up, you're basically using a lot coverage, it becomes in effect another setback. Why not make it be what it can be? And again, I think Needham's loose on what they count in at the patio and the deck, it's
Yeah.
better than some towns, I understand that. But give an architect the ability to do this and sit down and say, yeah, I'm at 25% here on the bottom, but look what I can do up top. And again, the reason we did this is because the FAR will control, let the FAR do what it does.
Which is the vast majority
Right,
of times.
if a
the
builder wants
FAR
to choose, if a builder wants to choose to go 25%, he's gonna be forced to do this.
Mhm.
So give him the option,
Yeah.
don't take it away from him and say, well, now you gotta be small, because guess what the builder's gonna do? He's gonna say, well, now you forced me to do this. So guess what I'm gonna do on the top? I'm gonna fill it in to get my FAR, it just decreases architectural incentive, in my opinion. Walkout basements, I know this was brought up at the meeting, I completely agree with the committee that walkout basements in the front,
Yeah.
for garages is hideous. I don't know the best way to approach it, but I think it's catastrophic to just take a broad brush and swipe out walkout basements. So how do you allow, and again, you allow walkout basements, those are gonna be incentivized to either not buy the lot, which is typically a nice lot, and I say walkout lot, if you're not restricted with handcuffs, that's great, right? You can do a nice thing, do some sliders, whatever you want. nice natural light coming in. And I think they get too tall, so to allow that, we tried to do that last time, we would still allow it and then maybe drop the height and don't allow dormers and try to do the best you can with it in the back and use the land so that you don't get these dirt skirts where you're building retaining walls all around your lot, right? We tried to put that terrace rule in last time to try to control it so that you couldn't have too big of a wall, it was 4 feet, and you had to step it back, I think, every foot for that, so you'd have terraces. Builders will do that now on that kind of lot to be, well, I can't get the thing, if I have to include my whole basement in that number, then I'm gonna fill it, and I'm gonna go high.
There's no scenario where you're including, so that's why we kind of went with the 50%, because we were trying not to, obviously, there's some lots would become not buildable in that
And
scenario.
I think it's close to fair, I guess I'm
And
just pointing.
50% of the
And then you
livable would
only,
then be
you only,
counted.
whatever
So you're-
percentage you are, you only count
It's a
that
few hundred
percentage.
square feet potentially that you're adding to your total.
If you're at 52%, you're counting the overage.
Let me just think about this for a second, because maybe the math is closer than I think, but if you had a 60 by 40 box, just to sort of a box, and it's at grade on the top.
Yeah.
And it's 8 feet lower on the bottom, and you slope the side,
Mhm.
maybe you put a 4-foot wall, you're exposing
Your entire
50% just across the back.
Well, you're not.
But
Well, you're gonna be 100% at the back and then you're gonna be somewhere.
You would need to be
Right.
enclosed, you'd need to be exposed 50% on the two sides as well before you would trigger.
You'd have to,
You'd have to be exposed 50% on two sides. It's 50% of the entire perimeter, the entire area of the perimeter is what would trigger
Back
it.
wall's only gonna be,
Is gonna be
20%.
25%.
the back, the whole back wall is only 20%.
Well, it's not, it could, it depends on the
Depending on
shape,
your
the shape of the
proportions.
house.
well, then you're 40 by 60.
You would have to
But the
have
60 is exposed.
the 60, but yeah,
60 part of the 60.
well, even if the
Well, no,
entire
if it's
60 was
wide by
proposed,
40 deep, you'd be exposing it across the back of the house.
So
to
let's say
walk
you
out,
had-
unless you start-
There's no-
let's
there's
say
no
that
60
entire
foot wide
60
rear
We don't, yeah, but
building
Needham
in
doesn't see any
these
60
SRV,
foot.
there's no
Yeah.
60-foot wide.
but even if it
building
was,
Because you can't, you got an 8-foot lot with 32 feet of setback. It's not
100
60
foot, if you had a
feet
100 by 100 lot.
But you don't.
Well,
Needham
but
doesn't
that's
have
the-
100
that's
by
the
100.
outline.
Needham's got 80 by 120. So
They
that's-
also have 100 by 100s, they certainly do.
And the.
They do.
Minimum, very
I
few
don't
of
know
the
the percentage, but
10,000.
it is.
but
Most
even,
of them are
even if that
85.
entire back wall was exposed, which is not unusual, that you've, because if
It's
a
not,
lot is
right? I mean, I don't
straight,
think that's,
but you need 50% of both sides to be exposed as well for it to trigger the 50%. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but even in that scenario, it's only, at that point, you're only counting 50% of your basement.
So you'd be encouraging,
Of your living-
at the
of your
50,
living.
at the 50%, you'd be encouraging walls on the sides, right? For people to not trigger what would
That's,
be pretty
someone
catastrophic.
mentioned that you'd be
would now
trying,
cover all of that,
if
right?
you're at 49%,
Yeah.
there's nothing counts.
Yeah,
Correct.
they've been discussing that and they
And again, there are lots of situations, there's a house being built on High Rock at the
recognize
minute
the issue.
that appears nearly at 4 stories at the rear
Yeah.
to its neighbours. I understand the front is more detrimental to people, but at the rear, there's a bunch of neighbours there, and all they're seeing is this just, the house is high up and it's sloped to the rear. They have this, what looks like a tower overlooking them at the back.
That's just the natural thing, a lot's been going on since probably
100%,
1776,
and we're not-
right?
yeah.
I mean, if you have that kind of lot and you live down gradient from
Yeah.
somebody, when you buy the down
Yeah.
gradient lot,
And that's,
But when the
that's,
developer creates a down gradient lot for the other person.
the intent with the 50%
Take a
there
look at
was
the
that,
corner of Rosemary and Webster.
across from you,
Yes.
out Durando.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, no, yeah,
So all developers are not creating.
but he filled that in, didn't he?
He
he
built
filled
a
it in.
4-foot, he raised the lot 4 feet.
the intent with 50% was that it
But
would be
that's not a
a
water.
very, very small few lots would trigger that annually, and even if they do trigger it,
Oh.
they're only triggering it above
It
50%.
sounds like, as Mark said, you guys have noticed a potential concern. I asked. if the
Yeah, I
board
mean,
considered,
it's
you
it's
know,
certainly possible that we may say that the basement should be free whether you have a sublot or not. But I think the point is, we think there's the minimum condition, right? Or for. Not
And I
many of
think in the
them.
front,
And
I think it's more than appropriate. So I mean, in the front, it's almost like if you could put a bylaw.
But there's
in
a
there
lot-
that says you can't do it in the front.
There's a
There's
house,
nothing you can do about one side. Although maybe you say if there's a certain percent exposed in the front, then the height has to drop some. I don't know.
yeah, there's a house on Brookland Street that has come up numerous times that is exposed on the front, but it's 30% that's exposed. Basement doesn't count.
Another big one, right, for me, and Wellesley did this, so much from Wellesley, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but the existing versus finished grade on buildings, right, that's another.
We put that in last time, Terry. That's already in place.
We never touched that.
We already.
you're going off the
That
lower,
exists now.
lower of the two, yes.
Yeah.
lower the
Does it
existing.
just now?
Absolutely, absolutely. We didn't even have a conversation
Sure,
about
that's probably argued about. Probably argued about it back then.
That was Dave Roche.
Yeah.
Was
Did
it
that
the
get
last
slid
time
in
we
after
did
the
that?
fact? I don't remember that.
that has been, and that's, you got a,
Well,
on
you
your,
guys
pop-
have an open book, so
on your,
I'm not
pop-
going the other way. I
On
guess
your-
my opinion on that would be, and it would have been my opinion last time I ever got through.
Well, it's funny because you talk about that house across from Mo, is that, and he says, how did they do that? That height of that house was measured from the old grade, which was a slope from the sidewalk up that little bit of a hill.
No, that house went in after we did what we did, so that's,
So it's still under 35 feet from the old grade. He just chose not to expose that much foundation in the front by doing the wall and doing the grade.
that was.
So you can
not-
manipulate.
Rather
because
than,
of the
what he
bylaw.
should have done was step the house.
And well, that gets to my point. See, if you drop the height to, tell me if I'm wrong about this, I don't think so, but if you drop the height to 33 and you buy a lot, whatever the lot is, and the lot isn't quite a walkout, it doesn't go down the perfect 8 feet. Anyway, we all love those lots, or at least we used to. But so say it goes down 4 feet, or say it goes side to side 4 feet. Something has to be done. If you're gonna redevelop it, right, it has to be dealt with. You can't have it, you can't leave it exactly the way it was, right? So you fill it in a little bit, and you have to fill 2 feet here and 3 feet there, and a lot of builders, you'll see they'll put a 3-foot wall around the back of the property to kind of get it somewhat of a level backyard, and then landscape it into whatever. That's minimal grading, in my opinion. It's not like an 8-foot thing. It's dealing with
Yeah.
4 feet or less. But now that potential up to 4 feet would come off your height, right? So if you're at now, you're not at 35. I think you can still get a nice roof at 32. I don't have a problem going to 33, but if you add that into, or if it's already in this mark alluded to, then now you potentially lose
Yeah,
4 more feet
again, we
off at
didn't,
33, and you're at a 29-foot height for that lot. So what does a builder do in that case? They either say, well, I'm not gonna touch it. Can I go for a special permit, right? Or I'm just gonna scalp my roof, which, so now that incentivizes.
I think you're actually into your maximum height there, not your average height, which is 41, well, it's
If you,
41
if you have a
minutes.
major slope, yes. I mean,
We
we're
also
talking
have that
about,
measurement from a single point in the street.
Yes.
We did put that in.
I remember
last
that.
time too. So you mentioned that here, that we should have that option. We do have that.
Did we put it in?
Yeah.
So that's in.
Yeah.
And you're not changing that?
We haven't even discussed it.
the only issue we
Same.
talked about is just taking the height from
Move the
35 to
same
33.
reduction.
And then the 41 to 39.
And the
which is the
existing
one on
grade
the
versus
max.
finished grade is already in.
It's
Are
already,
you
in.
saying the grade from the street controls?
It can.
You can, that's
And
a-
that's.
You can
lots that
choose.
slope downhill
So
away from-
the terminology is the average of the old grade or the new grade, whichever is lowest,
Taken from
is the
last.
terminology.
Remember, Kristen McFadden lived on a lot where the street was here and the backyard was here.
Yes.
And she said, what are you gonna do on a lot like mine, which is pretty common in her neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we worked through that as an alternative.
Yeah, I remember that now, yes.
So Gary, I think just to, we could talk about this for a long time, I know, because you're passionate about it, we're passionate about it, and there's lots of examples of a variety of ways to solve all these issues. But fundamentally, Needham has essentially an 80 or below on your typical frontage. So you're gonna get houses that are gonna, you're gonna take 28 feet off of that for your side yard setbacks. So, essentially, there's a 52-foot max for your typical 80-foot
But it would
frontage.
get longer, right? It
And
would,
so you're gonna
That's
go
already
deeper.
happened.
So you're,
It's gonna be longer,
the
but-
challenge is your garage and the rest of the house is close to being the same.
are you talking about the walkout? Are you back on?
No, I'm talking about just your basic floor
Shape of
plans
the lot.
and the,
Yeah.
and the bulk control issues. And you're talking about getting to 3,600 square feet
Well, right. but
for
you're-
your 2 floors, right? And coverage.
That to
So-
me is, yeah, fair.
So I think the one question I would pose to you is, agreed, we've talked about other subtle ways of changing the architecture, like we're gonna say that your top plate can only be 65% of that top plate can be up to the second floor ceiling, and 35% of
On the
that
second.
on the
Yeah,
second
And that
floor.
what I mean, so then,
You can't have 100%
Sorry, I
top,
don't want-
I'm just saying, you can't have 100, maybe one of the ways we could get to something like what you've got is to start limiting the top plate at the full height of the second floor.
At
So
8
go-
feet.
Yeah, so
I-
say,
I- am
well,
so fine
or
with
even just whatever your top height is, only 2/3 of that.
second floor can
plan
be at the
Can
full,
be at that height, and then everything else comes off of a 6-foot knee wall. Differences.
right? So you're
So
actually,
we do-
It forces you to do
You mean-
it. It forces you to do it.
Forces you to do that.
so frankly, I would do that all day long. My only concern is you're gonna get it, but maybe 8 other architects are gonna get it. But other guys who just want to come in and do a first and second floor and then put a roof on it are gonna be harder, they're gonna have
It's
to
a
work
great
harder
question.
at it.
It's a great
But
question.
to me, that takes the, it's the architectural detailing that and without trying, we're trying to be stylistically agnostic, right? We don't want to say, we want colonial, blah, blah, blah. We don't want flat roof. We don't want modern. We want it, anything.
You have to, I get
You gotta be, right? So we have to allow for whatever, we have to find other ways. And if so, the one thought would be, that's a little bit too complicated and we're trying to stay with rules that are within the realm of, a simpler understanding of volume control.
Get that.
I would all day long, as an architect, and I think Mark would agree, that it's not a hard thing to do for what and the results are in your drawing, right? And would be in a lot of houses that we see, that are built, that we like, that do fit into the neighborhood. It's the ones that are not in the neighborhood, not in the design style or in the volume style. And those are the things that were most, because you have to design a set of guidelines that are gonna basically rule out the unintended consequences. That's what we've been seeing in the last 8 years, is everything is getting built to the absolute maximum volume possible, not with great architectural results in some cases, right? So that's what we gotta work against.
So Mike,
You can come in all day long and build that. And the challenge would be for us to say, okay, Gary, you want a two-story solution, you're feeling handcuffed by the volume of your roof. Fine, we're gonna say, if it's a pull down, it's free.
hold on, Adam.
Yeah, if it's a pull down attic, it's free, right? You don't get it,
Take
which is what they're doing in
FAR,
Lexington. And if you
Did
have.
they
a
do
buil-
that in Lexington?
Yeah.
That's.
So I think those are the kinds of things that make some sense for
Yeah.
someone like you. And
So
I think.
understand, I'm coming in here,
We,
none of
we
that we're
would,
talking
we
about.
would love that solution 100% of the time.
It's tough to get at, how do you do it, like you said?
So
you
that's,
can- you
so
can
I'm
get
saying,
some
if
good
you
ideas.
feel handy.
You can't legislate it.
Well.
Well, we
I don't know,
can.
No,
you
you could legislate
incentivize
it, you could
We
legislate it
can't,
out.
yeah, we can't make,
I think.
we can't make that happen
Well, Wellesley did
But
it
we
by
can
forcing
make
it
it
on the board, right?
possible for you if we do something that says, okay, you can build your volume of attic that you want, you're not using it, then you're not gonna get taxed for it. So, the challenge is, the reason we put it in was because we hear from Lexington that they're doing, you probably have heard about the build-arounds. So they're gonna put in a built stair and it's gonna be 35 inches, so it doesn't meet code, so it doesn't mean that the habitable space is up above. Or they're putting in a 6-7, they're putting in a wood subfloor in the basement and they're building it, because it's Lexington's counting the basement. So they count the basement in their maps. So they're building 6'7" ceilings in the basement, so they get that all for free. They're doing the same
Or
thing
you
in
can
the
do that,
attic.
yes.
Because they're being incentivized to do this garbage.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to point out here in a
Oh.
polite way, that I see some of that here.
Right.
Not that what we did was perfect. I don't think it is. And I think the math needs to come down. I think Mo's exactly right. I just think it's gotta be, there's no way to do it exactly. You had some great ideas about capping the second floor height, capping the knee wall, or some ideas. Wellesley forces you to go to see them, right?
So, bottom line, we can do option A, we can do option B. You will not be handcuffed. You'll be 4,500 on a 10,000 square foot lot under option B. And if you had the pull down attic stair as your caveat, you can do 3,600 square feet on the ground floor, on 2 floors.
But you haven't done that. You're suggesting
I'm saying
that there's a lot of ways.
we're
to suggest that
working,
you could
we're
raise
not
it.
done yet,
Yeah, no, I get, well,
right? You're here, we're listening. We
And I-
want to talk
and I
about how
thank
to
you
make
for
this
that.
better.
and
Right?
I appreciate it, but what I saw in the last meeting was, right, I mean, you and Ari, let's get this wrapped up. So I think we're done. I got the impression we were done. I saw Rob saying we're not done.
No, we're
I
not
don't know
going to
what-
the
I
planning
don't know.
board until January. It was gonna be December next year.
What I saw was a quasi informal vote, and then you guys are gonna vote on Monday. Isn't that how I saw that?
Yeah, it might be Tuesday now.
That'd be Tuesday. So a
So-
lot can be done. with it.
So Gary,
We'll
I'm
post it
And again,
on
it's
the
your
greatly
committee, right?
appreciative
It's your
of-
committee to do what.
It's
you
your-
guys have to do.
No, but it's your feedback that's very helpful, because we want to make sure that we are aware of the issues that can create challenges that we could work around. Because we're just trying to figure out solutions that are gonna make the most sense for the most and for the most egregious solutions, right? Because we know that that's gonna there are always going to be unintended consequences. And every town, you know it, every town is going in and they're modifying and they're reducing, they're putting more controls in. So they're starting out with lenience and then they're coming out and they're crimping and changing, right? And so that's something that we're capable of doing now and we need to do because we've heard it from the community that there's way too much going on to take, and of course we have to fix the tree bylaw too. And you've got experience in Wellesley. So we're using Wellesley.
And I don't, again, I'm not even discussing it because I get it. And I think
Well, I'd like to hear about that, but that's a separate conversation, because I'd love to know what your experience was with trees. But
This committee's not doing.
we're not talking about trees, but we're coordinating
I think it should be looked at. I think it should be overseen. I think that when Wellesley has a tree warden get involved with this, I think it's great. I don't think it's great because it's hard, but I think it's good relative to clear cutting everything.
Yeah.
So again,
And you had 20 feet in Wellesley, which is a lot better.
they're 20 feet across every zone. That's just
Yeah.
how they are.
But I'm saying that's a lot more room for trees. Needham's got 14-foot setbacks and we're doing the same.
It's very hard to keep a tree in a 14-foot setback.
It's tough.
Well, that is tough, right? You have to figure out how you, and Wellesley has the tree,
We're doing the same thing, tree yard, but our tree yard is
it's gonna be
narrow.
small. I think theirs is 10 feet
It's 20.
in
They
Wellesley.
use the whole thing.
They just use their setbacks.
Yeah, they use the setbacks, same as ours.
I wonder if that's new. I thought it was 10 when we did this a couple of years ago. Did they change it to
Oh,
20?
yeah, it was like, it was.
But the thing is that you can also get around, I'll say get around, that's the wrong word.
Do
You
we,
can also deal with that by having an arborist come in, and if the tree is gonna be a hazard after the house is built, or if it's got
Right, you got a
disease,
certified arborist.
and
Yeah,
then
we
worst case, you can replace
we
it.
finished the formal
Yeah.
part of the meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Then we can, if we want to chat casually, we can.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
So-
that's great.
Any other questions that you have? Do you have any other things you want to say?
No, I think our intent, and it's interesting to get your perspective, our intent all along was we're not trying to cut off new builds by any stretch of the imagination, and obviously I'm a builder. I think we were trying to put controls in place, definitely that reduce the big house on the small lot a little bit, but still allow people to build the house that people want.
Do you guys
today.
feel that it's fair, or do you think I'm unfair? When I say 3,600 on 2 floors, is that to you altogether a normal?
Well, here's what's bizarre about this. You know, Wellesley set that number a while ago. And we all know what exists in town is much smaller than 3,600. And so we did take from 2017. And as much as some people said, wow, that's pretty generous, we're going to take the 4-bedroom first, with bathrooms on the second floor and the ground floor program as a given for what we think is appropriate for anything 7,500 and up, right? Which is pretty generous because there are a lot of 3-bedroom houses or a 4th bedroom is up or down in smaller homes on smaller lots, right? As existing houses. So to allow that 4-bedroom in all of these districts and all these lots is acknowledging that there are, more bedrooms that people are looking for. And so that's trying to set a higher bar for houses. So that in a way is trying to, and we are higher than Wellesley and relative to the allowable FAR in all of these districts. And we're doing that to try and find a balance so that we don't have to have an administrative burden for town, because we know we can't go in and ask the planning board to take on,
To have a whole
six,
committee like Wellesley
yeah, six.
do it.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are focused on doing 2 to 4 a month, right?
And
And a lot more staff.
And
they
I
have staff,
appreciate
right.
the fact that you guys aren't done yet and all that, but like I said, as this reads, and it'll be my last comment, and it's redundant, but
Yeah.
I still don't see it in this number. If it.
We've made an adjustment on the coverage, by the way. We're going back up. We're gonna add a point up, so we're gonna go to 22 for the 10,000 instead of the 21. And I think all of that's based on what we've studied for plans and studying. We've done a lot of plan analysis of looking at how you can do a 22% coverage. And you take your garage out and get a floor plan that's functional and got all the program that you
The
want.
garage is included in coverage, right?
Yeah.
So it's all covered.
Yeah.
And you
But-
guys don't include patios and decks, right?
We didn't change the
No,
definition.
nothing, no changes. So I think we're trying to just get to the final sort of fine tuning of all of this stuff with input from everyone who wants to give it to us and our own analysis. And so I think we'll be,
Even a
continuing to
60
refine it.
A 62 by 35 house, which would be shaved off of that, just to point out, it's 2,170, would just make it, and that would have to be pulled in quite a bit. And I just don't know why it would have to be. I just think that 25% is not a lot of
Because
coverage.
it has to be
Native is
because they're
25.
trying to make houses small.
Use your setback or your FAR. So then what you basically, if I'm hearing that correctly, is that a 3,000 square foot house is more appropriate on a 10,000 square foot lot than a 3,600. Or maybe it's some number in between, but that may be the core difference of what we're talking about here. And I think it
Yeah, I
is. I
think
mean,
it
that
is.
seems to be the gist of it.
it's a shaving down of maybe it's not gonna be the 36, it's gonna be
The
a
way they
35
arrived
or it's
at the
34.
numbers is they took 3 real houses and did a series of reductions to them. One on a 7,800 square foot lot, and then 10,000, one on a 12,000. And
The
actually
renderings,
just took it,
the
and,
renderings.
and Oscar shaved it out. They hired a company that did 3D modeling.
I saw it.
And they had and then I sketched out the floor plan, and you're right, you don't get a 14 by 15 bedroom anymore. It's 12 by 10. Which is,
And I, again, people.
but
and-
it's,
and then you
if I look
finish
at
it
the
in-
houses in my neighborhood built in the 60s and the 70s.
But we're not in the
That's-
sixties and seventies, we're in 2025, and buyers today want a different thing, and the mass, we're just not dealing with enough mass to do this to what people want. And I know, I'm telling you, it will deter from it. People don't want to spend $1.2 million for a potential lot and be that constrained. They will walk, and so
Well, they may, on the smaller lots, I don't know
I'm
about
not
the
talking
tens.
about, I'm only talking about tens. I don't
Yeah.
care, I don't care less what you guys do from 9 down
Well,
and from 12 up. It's a 10 to 12, 12.5 lot to keep that size home on it, which is a fair and reasonable thing for the abundance of your stock. That's what I'm talking about. Now, these are opinions about the 10 by 10 room is fine, or a 10 by 12 room is fine. But, is it really up to a committee of 8 people to take 28,000 properties across the town and make that decision? To me, that's big. I mean, that's an electionable issue. I just, again, I don't think the average person knows, but they will know when they go to buy it and they sit down with their architect and they're like, how come that's like, I can't fit this in here? And that room's kind of
How
small.
many people buy a lot to build a house? As opposed to
In this town?
developers who buy a lot, build a spec house and sell it.
I'd be guessing, but I'd say it's probably 75-25 spec builder to
Yeah,
buyer
there's
builder.
there's about 65 houses a year in total, and maybe 10 of them
Or
Yeah.
for an owner.
are
For
directed by
an
the
owner.
owner, for an owner, yeah.
Yeah. So what's the, I don't know.
People want to live in Needham.
Yeah.
Needham is the Wild West in terms of what's regulated. Compared to comparable communities with comparable locations and comparable services and education.
But the math is such, and this is a vital thing, and I'm not an economic thing, I went to school for accounting, I guess I'm in a pit, but it doesn't cost that much more to build a 3,600 square foot house than it does to build a 3,000 square foot house. The product is significantly altered, in my opinion, as I've said repeatedly. So if you spend $1.3 million to build it, $1.3 million to buy it, and some number to build it, and it costs you $100,000 or $150,000 less to build that house because it's 3,000 feet, the reduction of what you can sell it for, or what the equity would be worth to a custom buyer builder, is significantly less. And so the incentive is just not there, in my opinion. You just don't see it. The reason that people try to build a certain thing is to hold the value and perspective to the cost of the lot and the cost of the build. And this disrupts that. It disrupted it in
I
Newton.
don't
It
think
disrupted, well, the
houses are
Newton permits are down
necessarily-
like, what, 80%? I thought it was in the last 2 years. They're crashing out permits in their units, right? They want to just build dense units everywhere now, like next to one of my commercial properties, 50 units here, 100 units there. But when it comes to houses, their single-family permits are down. With what's,
Are houses priced based on their construction cost or on the market? For houses,
it's always the market, always,
right.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
but-
question is,
But it's a price per square foot.
Yeah, if that doesn't work with the cost to construct, they don't get built.
They don't, exactly.
Yeah, it's
You're
not.
right. They just won't be built, but the market's obviously the controlling factor.
Yeah, and I
and I think the
personally, I
market
believe,
is there to live in Needham. The house across the street, the Dorenzo house, there were about 30 people who wanted to live in that original house.
Yeah, and again, there'll be, so, yeah, so again, it will
There will be a
incentivize,
shift, there'll be a shift.
there'll be a
There'll
shift.
be
in
more end users who are buying on
and
smaller
less
lots.
builders, because
Yeah.
this is gonna blunt it, yeah, and so that's the
So
goal of
who's
the committee, but I thought
who's
you say it's
interested?
I
not.
don't, that's not,
Who's
a
interested?
well,
We're
it's not
trying
a
to
bad
maximize
outcome,
here.
but.
We're trying to maximize the interest of people who live in the town, developers, people who want to sell houses.
Okay, yeah.
These are all conflicting interests.
They are.
And there are a lot of
But,
people who want to buy a small house and live in it. So they're not everybody wants 5 or 6 bedrooms. There are a lot of people who bought a
I
5
never
or 6
once said
bedroom
5 or
house.
6, we're talking 4 decent size. I mean,
The
you
house
know,
across
I'm
the
gonna
street from
formally
me
end
had
the meeting
6
because I have to go
bedrooms,
do some
Yeah.
stuff.
6
also.
bedrooms
Okay.
and 6 bathrooms, and had 3 people living in it.
it's
So yeah,
They
I mean,
change bathrooms
But we're
every day?
true